People love to overcomplicate why homes don't sell, but at the end of the day, almost every home will sell if the price is right. It's real estate and it has a market value. Welcome to RE Radar. I'm your host and realtor, Nathan Mathisen. And as always, we are all about education here and helping people understand real estate. Today, how we're going to be doing that is by talking about why some homes sell right away and other homes end up sitting on the market for weeks and weeks or months and months. First off, there is a buyer for nearly every single property. The real question is the seller trying to sell the home at a price where that buyer actually becomes interested? You can see examples where a home that is in total distress, what some might call a complete dumpster fire, comes to the market and it sells within a week. Then you'll see examples where a home that looks pristine, looks gorgeous, brand new, move-in ready, shows so well it seems, yet it sits for weeks and weeks. So why does the horrible looking one sell while the great looking one doesn't? And more often than not, it comes down to price. The distressed home was listed at a price point that made buyers feel like it was a good opportunity, while the nicer home may have been overpriced for what buyers felt it was worth. A home sitting on the market usually is not proof that nobody wants it. It's proof that the current pricing does not match the current buyer pool. Buyers are essentially out there searching for homes in certain price brackets. They've got a minimum number and they've got a maximum number. Being overpriced will hide your home from the right buyers. Even if a home is overpriced by, say, $25,000, the buyers in that range are now going to be comparing your home against other homes priced at that point. And if, well, those homes are a better value, which if they are priced correctly, they probably are, your home is going to sit there and grow stale. Now, price is only step one, because after buyers decide a home might fit their budget, the next challenge, of course, is getting them emotionally hooked. And some homes simply are better at that than others. The first way to get someone emotionally hooked is, well, by having a great first impression. And for buyers, what is that first impression? It's usually going to be listing photos nowadays. Nearly every buyer today is looking at a home online before they ever step foot inside of it. So having great listing photos is huge and can absolutely be the difference between a home selling the first weekend versus taking multiple weeks to sell. If a buyer starts clicking through the photos and they're dark, poorly angled, looks cluttered, there are only a handful of pictures of the actual home, they may dismiss that property within 10-15 seconds of looking at it and decide they don't even want to see it in person. They don't want to tour it. Those poor photos online were enough for them to say, no, thank you. On the other hand, if the listing photos are good, have nice lighting, good angles, enough coverage for the buyers to really understand the space, they're more likely to take that next step and actually then go and see the property. Now, of course, some homes, they're simply going to photograph better than others. If it's a major fixer-upper or even a potential teardown especially, obviously, those photos are not going to look amazing. But buyers for those homes, well, they are going to understand that. In that case, you need to make the price reflect the reality of the home. So fixer-upper, the photos, they won't be good no matter how you shake it. This is more about homes that actually show well in person, but maybe the seller or agent went cheap and didn't hire a professional photographer. Or for whatever reason, the photos just turned out poor. That listing right there with the bad photos is shooting itself in the foot because the photos are making the home feel much worse than it actually is in person. And that will scare away a huge pool of buyers who otherwise may have really liked the property if they had just gone and toured it, but the photos said no to them. So bad photos alone could absolutely be the reason a home is sitting on the market for weeks and weeks. Now, price and photos are kind of what gets a buyer into the home. But let's say you nailed both those things, check, and the home still isn't selling. What else could possibly be happening? Well, one possibility that I see is the home just doesn't feel cohesive to the buyer. Sometimes a buyer will walk through a property and something just feels off for them. They may not even fully understand why, but the house just doesn't feel like it flows together properly for the buyer, and that makes them not wanting to make an offer. Now, this often happens when a home has gone through multiple major remodels from completely different eras without ever having a full cohesive update. Because as you know, styles in real estate, they come and go with the trends. If a home has a kitchen that was remodeled in the 90s, bathroom was remodeled in the 2010s, then some random addition from some other era was added to the home, buyers are going to subconsciously feel a disconnect while walking through that home. Different flooring, different trim styles, mismatched finishes, just awkward transitions between the unique spaces, it all adds up. Meanwhile, if you've got a home where everything was updated together or even updated over different time, but with a consistent style and vision, that home tends to feel much more intentional and more of a homey feeling for a buyer. Buyers might care a little less whether everything is just ultra high end and more about whether everything feels intentional and cohesive. Now, along those same lines, all homes, of course, are not created equally when it comes to floor plans. Some homes, simply said, have better layouts that work better. Others will feel awkward. And a home with a good floor plan generally is much easier to sell because maybe the home is really chopped up and closed off, no open floor concept, which people love. Maybe the bedroom location doesn't make sense. Maybe there's poor flow between the rooms. Buyers are going to notice that stuff when walking through the property, and it will leave a lasting impact. Now, a home could technically be a 2,500 square foot home, but if it has a lot of space that is just awkward hallways, strange little nooks, wasted areas that would never get used and function, it's not going to live like a true 2,500 square foot home. So the space matters. The best floor plans are usually the ones buyers barely even notice because everything just flows naturally and makes sense. You don't want a home that feels like a puzzle. Now, unfortunately, changing a home's layout, while not impossible, can require some huge remodels. But something that absolutely can hurt a home's ability to sell that is easier to fix is odor. A buyer walks through that front door, and if there's this funky smell, that's often what they're going to remember most from the showing. And when their agent later calls them and asks, "So after thinking about it, did you want to write an offer on that property?" That smell may be the first thing that pops back into their head, and they will say, "No, thank you." Now, that odor may be pet smells, cigarette smells, mildew, or just that old house smell that makes buyers start questioning the condition of the property, which you never want to happen. You want to eliminate those odors as much as possible. But there's an important caveat here, and that is you don't want to replace a bad odor with an overpowering artificial scent either. Because if a buyer walks into a home and immediately gets hit with an overwhelming smell of air fresheners or Febreze, well, that also is going to make their spidey senses tingle and they're going to be suspicious and start wondering what the seller is trying to cover up. So neutral is almost always going to be your better bet for the home smell. Now, of course, there are plenty of other factors that affect why a home sells quickly or slowly. But something else that matters that isn't necessarily directly about the home itself and its condition is timing and how the home is launched onto the real estate market. If you list a home on Christmas Eve, well, odds are it's going to take a lot longer to sell than if you had waited just a few weeks. Certain times of year are simply more active than others. But aside from seasonality, how you market the home during that first week on the market, it also matters a lot because that is when the listing is freshest and when you're most likely to have that highest amount of buyer attention on your home. So you want to make it as easy as possible for a buyer to see the home. That's one of the many reasons a vacant home often has an advantage over an owner-occupied home. Buyers can tour them more freely without needing to work around the seller's schedule. You also will be wanting to maximize that exposure for the first weekend by having open house coverage and making the property accessible to the general public. If you limit access or don't properly market the launch of a listing, you risk fewer buyers seeing the property, which can ultimately, of course, lead to fewer or no offers. Now, this is all the time I've got for you today, but as you can see, there are a lot of different reasons why a home sells quickly while others sit for months. But if you remember one thing from this episode, remember this: homes that sit are dealing with a pricing problem first and foremost. Real estate is a valuable commodity. If a home is priced correctly, there is usually going to be a buyer for it no matter what condition that house is in. And if it's priced wrong, well, even if it's a beautiful move-in ready brand new home, it can still sit for weeks and weeks or months and months. And as always, if you have any personal questions or want to chat some more about anything that I said today, I'm always happy to help. But until then, as always, my name's Nathan Mathisen. This has been RE Radar. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Till next time, peace.